Do you abide by any religion?
Yes, I follow the teachings of the Baha'i Faith, which is a religion that came out of what we now call Iran in the mid-19th century.
Is there any specific reason why you believe in that religion?
Very much so. I found when I was young and was sent off to church by my parents that I was being told that, and that the interpretations have changed over the years, but at the time the ethos of the Christian church was that Christians were right and everybody else was heathens, or were heathens, and only Christians went to heaven and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Even at 11 and 12 years old, I could not conceive of a God figure that would allow most of the world to be wrong and a relatively small amount of the world to be right. And that caused me problems. I couldn't reconcile that. I couldn't understand how so many other groups could be allowed to be wrong if only the Christians could be right.
Yeah. Is there any specific reason why?
Yeah, the reasons that I don't believe in any organised religions is that I find most religious backgrounds to be myths, fairy tales, and I'm a bit too old to start believing in fairy tales. I don't believe in Santa Claus, I don't believe in Easter bunnies, and I don't believe in gods and myths and hells and heavens, because I think they're basically childlike.
So saying that, do you feel there is a definite need for religion?
Absolutely, absolutely. Religion is dual function. It is a social message and a spiritual message. And the social message has changed. One of the key principles of the Baha'i Faith is that we accept that there has been what's called a progressive revelation from God to man over the years, that Jesus, Muhammad, Zoroaster, Buddha are not different leaders of different religions, but are actually all part of one sequential revelation. And they all fit into one. And that's what made the key difference for me, where I found I was at 11 and 12 years old, believing or being told that everybody else was wrong. Suddenly I found that actually no, everybody's right. But because those religions have been delivered to different places at different times, people don't necessarily always see that. On the spiritual side of the messages, they're actually all pretty much the same.
Yeah.
The social teachings have changed because of the needs of the time.
So how do you feel there is a need for religion or for people to be religious then?
Oh, I think the needs for people to be religious are quite interesting. I think it traditionally is a form of control. I think the state controls people by telling them to behave themselves in this life and to put up with things which are wrong, to go to war and do things on the grounds that in the future there's a better hereafter and there's a place called heaven or there's a place called hell. I think there most certainly is a form of control. I think it's social control. I find the church nowadays, which worries itself about, instead of worrying about the real things in the world, worries about whether gay people get married or not. And I can't really follow that. To me, that's hardly very important when the world's in one hell of a mess that it is. Maybe it should start concerning itself about real things. And so...
continuing from that, have you got any feelings about the Michael Adebolajo, who is in the news for the murder of Woolwich?
Well, yeah, actually, I think you're asking the question the wrong way.
Yeah.
The question should be about the poor guy who was hacked down, not about the misguided guy who did it. Every religion, every group has its nutcases, has its fringe elements. Those who seek to make names for themselves or whatever. The tragedy in this case, apart from the obviously very personal tragedy of the poor guy who was hacked to death and his family and those around him, was that a matter of months ago, when a person of an ethnic minority was hacked to death in a fairly similar way, it didn't make anything like the same news coverage.
So how do you feel about the different rules within different religions and how they compare, like from extremists to standard Christians?
Well, it's quite sad. I think I think that extremism, be it Christian, Muslim, Hindu, Buddhist, whatever, is quite sad. It's people who are very insecure that if they criticise me for criticising their gods, I find that really odd that me has got any impact on some illustrious god of theirs, and if I can't criticise them, I find it really insecure that they think they have to shoot me, blow me up, and they all do it just because I criticise what they believe. I find that really insecure of them actually, and makes me laugh.
Has anything happened in your life for you to change your opinion, or have you always felt the same?
I probably have always felt the same. My mother made me go to Sunday school when I was 7 and 8 years old, which I disliked intensely. And as soon as I stopped Sunday school, I never went back to church. My father was an atheist as well, and I read some of his books before he died, which probably coloured my views as well. But when I look around the world and what goes on in the world, I find it just confirms my view that there is no God, and if there is, he's either incompetent, that he can't stop things that go wrong, in which case he's hardly an omnipotent God, and if there is a God and he does allow children to suffer and people to suffer as they do, I'm not really sure I want anything to do with him anyway.